In the business emergency room, the symptoms we see most often aren't broken products. They're broken experiences, people issues, clients ignored, partners frustrated, suppliers disengaged, relationships that didn't get the attention they deserve. And just like Disney proves, experience is what keeps people coming back. Ignore it, and you're headed for business triage.
Leadership today isn't just about scaling. It's about navigating constant uncertainty, market disruptions, and high-pressure decisions. If you're dealing with chaos, bottlenecks, and relentless pressure, welcome to the Business Emergency Room.
Hey, I'm glad you're tuning in because we are talking magic today. I have a magical guest. His name is Vance Morris. He's a former birth control factory security guard who turned Disney leader and then turned bankrupt out of work executive, and then turned carpet cleaner, and eventually turned into a successful entrepreneur, which is why he's here. Well, he's here because he definitely has scars, business scars to speak of, is used to turmoil, and most of all, he can talk to us about magic and client retention and how the Disney souls may apply to any and all of us, which sounds fabulous. So welcome, Vance.
Thank you so much. I think we'll have some fun today.
You're here. I mean, we're all attractive by that Disney label, right? But I'm actually attractive to that whole bio. I love people with those kind of journeys because we always say if you've seen enough weird stuff, you can deal with enough weird stuff, which is useful in this context of this podcast. So let's start with a wealth of experience like that. Let's start maybe with an example. Can you talk us through some of the typical change journeys or transformation journeys you go through when you work with clients around client retention?
Certainly. So before you get to retention, and I know we were speaking a couple of minutes before we started to record, you need to make sure that you have a great experience for your customers. So you have to your product has to do what it says. Your service has to do what it says, because those are all just entries into the marketplace. And if you try to make a wow moment out of something that's not so good or stinks, all you're doing is accentuating that, and you will go out of business a lot faster. So you've got to have your base product, your base service has got to be spot on. Then you can look at creating experiences. And so what I do is I look at the entire customer journey from beginning to the end, and you find points on there that you can create an experience. I'll give you a quick example. I worked with a string of oil change companies. So it was a private company, not one of the big franchises. And he was having problems with competition, specifically pricing, and was continuously getting beat up. Coupons were coming out. He always had to reduce his price. And, because there is no competitive advantage to being second cheapest. So you have to either be the lowest, or you might as well go the other direction and go up. So what we decided was we were going to create an experience out of his oil change. And I'll give you the brief version of it. We did a lot of different things, but we set it up initially as a 1950s style service station. So it was back when, four guys would run out to your car and, they had little shirts and bow ties, and one guy would squeegee your windshield, another one checks the air pressure in your tires, and guy with gloves comes and he opens your door and he escorts you into the waiting room where there's a barista sitting there waiting, ready to make your favorite coffee drink. Now, that right there separated him from all of the other commodity businesses that he was being compared to. I mean, what oil change place has a barista? So from this, you also want to be able to monetize your experiences. So he's charging about 40% more than his closest competitor. And a number of other things happened. One, his employee retention went through the roof because now they were serving a few less people, but they were paying more. So his bottom line was better, less wear and tear on his building, less wear and tear on his employees. And actually, the oil change guys were the ones that were making the coffee drinks. They just rotated throughout the week. And guys love doing it because, well, you're not down in the pit doing oil changes anymore. You're actually up making coffee for the guests. The word of mouth marketing is just unreal in a case like this. You can't pay for this kind of marketing. And when somebody either uses your product or uses your services, at the end of the day, you want them to say, oh my God, you'll never guess what happened at, and then insert your profession there. So, I mean, you'll never guess what happened when I went to the oil change. They walked me in, the guy was nice, and they made my favorite coffee drink, and it was included in the price. That's the kind of word of mouth marketing that we need. And people are going to talk about us. So we might as well direct the conversation towards a positive outcome and get them talking about these kinds of things. So I think going through the entire customer journey and finding those points will definitely create that experience and then set you up for retaining your customers.
Yeah, I love that example, and I can totally see the Disney sauce on an experience like that, right? In where I come from in oil and gas, in contracting, I see a lot of parallels in terms of experience, not just to clients, but also to strategic partnerships or even suppliers, right? Because if you're doing these mega billion-dollar construction projects and you're in with engineering contractors for a decade sometimes to develop these things, the experience they have in working with you historically and in getting the job and landing the job and how it starts out will dictate how they resource this, right? It makes a difference how you behave if you get the A, the B, the C, or even the D or E team, because internally people want to work with the clients that have nice teams or good projects or a pleasant working relationship. So I see experience as something I think we underestimate in many facets of business that actually make people dynamics work.
Yeah, I see that a lot. And even with vendor relations, at the end of the day, it's people doing business with people. You're not doing business with the business, which is impossible. So there's always a purchasing manager at the end of it, or, somebody who signs the contract. And so what are the experiences you're providing for that person? And I'm not saying that you got to be sending them cookies all the time or, stuff like that. It's, are you delivering on time, or are you exceeding that and delivering early? All these things, or if they're waiting for something, Disney is famous for waiting. I mean, you wait for everything there. You wait in line for a ride, you wait in line for food, you wait in line for transportation. But Disney's figured out how to make that wait not feel so bad. I mean, they can't change time, but they can make it feel like it's going a little bit quicker. And they actually created something called linertainment, where they entertain you while you're in line. And sometimes it's characters walking around. Sometimes it's something interactive. Maybe they just have a fan and some mist blowing so to keep you cool. We can translate that to our businesses. And, what in our world do people wait for, and how do we make it feel better? I mean, do they wait for a proposal? Great. Does that take a week or 2 or 3 to put together? All right. Well, what's happening in that 3-week period to make sure that they are not having buyer's remorse, that they don't want to look and maybe make changes or even change the vendor? So you want to implement things along the way, whether that be, sending them emails, videos, make something through the postal service, just a little card saying, hey, we're working on this. This is the update. it lets people know that you're still working and thinking about them, and not just a void of 3 weeks of time and they never hear from you.
Yeah, and always interested in learning and doing better. That it's not like, oh, I've got you in now. Now you're trapped.
Right.
The reason you're here and your reason you're advocating about experience is particularly, people listening and people I deal with a lot are busy trying to grow and scale, and so there's a lot of focus on the new clients and the next clients, and unfortunately, that goes often at the expense of enough time and attention on the current client base. But there's a real trade-off in the money there and the pain there, and all about that. How do you break that story? How do you convince people to not forget about that and remind them?
Yeah, certainly. That's a great question. And one of the first things is that it is ridiculously expensive to get a new customer. And I don't know how many businesses focus on that customer acquisition cost. I'll give you an example from one of my businesses here in Maryland. I just got the numbers for last month, and it cost me $126 to get a new customer in the front door. That's a lot of money to get a new customer. And if I just always got new customers, I would slowly go out of business because they're not profitable or as profitable as existing customers. So like our average job or our base job is $200. And if I spend $126 to get a new customer, that leaves me $74 to pay the technician, put gas in the vehicles, rent, insurance, and everything else. There's nothing left over for me.
Yeah.
Now, I'm okay with that $126 because I know that we are going to keep them and that they are going to use our services again and again. So the second time that I clean for them, I don't have to spend that $126 because I've already got the customer. It costs me only $22 a year to keep customers in my service businesses. So I'm already $100 more profitable when I clean for an existing customer. Now, I understand if you want to grow, yes, you need new customers. I get it. Your old customers, they die, they move away, whatever. We need some replacement, and we also need new for growth. If you went to Disney today, it doesn't matter which theme park. If you go to the one in Orlando, 80% of the people there today have been there before. 80%. Only 20% of them are new and coming for the first time. To me, that is a great ratio for most businesses to follow. That way, you are constantly getting new, the 20%, and it's balanced out by the 80% that have been there before and are much more profitable than the new ones. They spend more. They have the whole note like and trust, so you can upsell, you can cross sell. If you've got a new service, they're the first ones to jump on it. In Disney, they've got it built in. When they launched the cruise ships, they had a built-in audience of millions of people. All they had to do was send one email. Hey, do you want to get on a Disney cruise? 2,000 people email back, yes. That was the extent.
And they're also the one that will refer you, huh? And that will lead you to new business. Somebody that's trying you out is not going to sell you on to somebody else. Yeah, and I think there's a lot of industries I work in where the transaction volume with an individual client is a lot lower. And sometimes, right, if you're a builder and building a house for people, your client is one client. The thing is, the parallel there is if you spend all your time and money getting them in the door, but then you don't actually also spend some of your marketing dollars and your efforts in making that experience with you good throughout, that's going to cost you in the end, right? On these major oil and gas jobs that we did, if you're in a relationship with somebody to build something for 5, 6, 7 years, and there is no investment in the relationship throughout, it's costing you extra because it becomes a claims culture and an inefficiency culture and And so the parallel is there. If you are working also with somebody over several years, you're working with several individuals. So you kind of have to wow whoever joins that team a year in or 2 year. And that's not a purchasing transaction because it feels like they're already your client, but they were not involved when you wowed them. And so they don't remember that part.
Right. Yeah, and you constantly have to remind people why you exist. I mean, it's not your customer's job to remember you. It's your job to remind the customers why you exist. And whether that just be through newsletters or videos or stuff through the mail, constantly reminding people, even though they're using your service. I mean, it's like having a SaaS company and you're using the software and maybe you use it every day, but you don't really realize that it's there. Yeah. That software company should be saying and reaching out to you and saying, hey, we appreciate you again using it. Hey, here's 3 tips on how to, grow your business using the software. They need to continue to add value. Otherwise, you're going to get forgotten and some new whiz-bang software is going to come out and you're going to switch because, well, you never heard from the other guys ever again.
Yeah, and of course, Disney does that very effective. I think we talked earlier in the episode that this is all about people doing business with people, and so feeling those relationships is very important. Yet at the same time, Disney is very good at bringing it back to the brand, right? Why you like us, why you want to come back to us. To your point, is to reminding the customers why they like Disney and why you want to come back to them. Can you draw a parallel as to how Disney does that and what businesses can learn from that? What are some of the main things they do to keep reminding you that we all love Disney?
Well, certainly they have the merchandise, which, so, I mean, you can't walk down the street without somebody with a Mickey Mouse T-shirt on, and that's branding, and that's...
I'm laughing so hard because my first ever job, I worked for a company in industrial gases. Well, my first ever job after graduating. So I worked for a company that was trucking around nitrogen and oxygen and filling up tanks at chemical plants, but at horse breeders and everywhere else, right? Slaughterhouses and hospitals. It was the whole gamma. And so that's an industrial business, right? The only reason the average consumer would maybe recognize the brand because they see these trucks traversing the country with a logo on it. And it had a really good slogan because it said brings life to air or air to life, the other way around. So people knew that, but had no idea what they did. But the truckers, the whole setup of the contract for them was they were being dressed from head to toe. And that literally included company underwear. So because I was thinking Disney truly does merge everywhere, and then I'm thinking, yeah, some industrial companies do too.
I love it.
I think it's for fantastic. A much more limited audience. But
yeah, I mean, going back to the original question, I think that businesses sometimes they don't understand what business they're truly in. Disney knows that they are in the memory business and the happiness business. And all of their employees can wrap their little brains around, we're here to make people happy and we're here to create memories. Now, in my cleaning businesses, we create healthy homes. Now, we do it by cleaning upholstery and carpet and things like that. But it's a bigger mission. So if your mission is bigger than your job and your employees can wrap their brains around it, now you can start to really use that and see things that you hadn't seen before that are going to contribute to that overall mission. So, I mean, Disney's employees know that, okay, it's time to, we need to make people happy. So when it's a really hot day and the little girl is walking through and she's licking her ice cream cone and the ice cream cone goes bloop on the sidewalk, the employee that sees that knows that his mission is to make people happy. So he immediately grabs the new ice cream cone and before the kid can start crying, has the new ice cream cone in front of the child. And then he goes and he cleans up because his mission is to make happiness. His job was to sweep the street. So we have to understand that. And I think that's where Disney gets so much power, is they understand what business they're actually in. I've worked with a number of medical professionals and, orthodontists, and they've going through this exercise of what business are you really in. A couple of them came up with, we sell confidence. I mean, if you're a salesperson and you have crooked teeth and, and they're dirty and maybe you're missing a few, and you never smile, well, your sales are going to suffer because you don't look like you're a very happy person. But you go to the orthodontist and they fix your teeth, they clean them up, they put a few extras in there. Now you have confidence and you're smiling and your sales will increase. So the orthodontist is selling confidence. So what is your business really selling, and how do you get around that and create those? You're really creating memories. I mean, you've got to create emotional connections. I don't care what you sell. You could be selling gas, you could be selling cameras, wallpaper, it doesn't matter. Once you've created an emotional connection with your customer, they're not leaving you. They won't, because they feel connected, they feel tied to you, and not just the business. So if you have a relationship with a company that's 10 years long, well, every new person that comes in there, you still need to reconnect. You still need to make an emotional connection with that person, because, as you said, they weren't there 5 years ago when the original contract was signed.
Yeah, and emotional is can be very different at different levels, right? But in good and effective partnerships in a very tech B2B environment, that emotion comes back in the fact that both parties feel that they're creating magic together, that they're like, hey, I'm working with the best and they are the best, and I want to be with them. I want to operate in that space with these kind of partners, because that's what's going to get me keep my innovation pace where it's going, right? Emotion can also be very business or business success attached, not necessarily personal. I also love that you bring it back to mission, because I'm definitely a preacher on the front of vision, because so many of the people I work with, or the business I work with, have lost a little track of where they're going, or it's gotten fuzzy, and it's led to them not being able to prioritize as effectively and at focus. And so there's usually quite some work involved in creating that clarity. But beyond that, once you go to a bit of a piece of comp, actually spending some time on the mission part of things is so important, because if there's just a vision but not a mission, it's really hard for your team to figure out how to manage that experience part, because that interpretation of how that vision translates to an experience, you don't want everybody to make their own interpretation of that. You want a strong mission that leads to building towards that brand and that relationship, and not wild growth where every client has a very different view of what that looks like,
Yeah. Well, you dilute your brand that way, and then you confuse people, and confused people don't buy. So if people are not getting a consistent experience from you, that's also not a good thing. And which is why I advocate, again, documenting your systems and your processes, so that you have something to refer to, so that everybody will perform and deliver to your expectations. I mean, Disney documents the living daylights out of stuff. I mean, they got binders this thick of, how to carry a tray in a restaurant, or how to, operate a ride. And those systems give freedom to the employees, because they know what they need to do. They follow the system, and they've got room in their brain to do all of the nice wow stuff, like replacing the ice cream cone, like, doing autographs or taking pictures for family. If you don't have the systems, you don't have the freedom. You're just kind of flying by the seat of your pants, and you hope that you're doing it right.
Yeah, so true. Hey, Vance, can we circle back to wrap things up to your interesting own and live experience? For people listening in, on an individual basis. You have been on the down low and then made it back up. What's the best piece of advice that you can give to listeners who are currently feeling like they're on the down slope?
I've been poor and I've been rich, and I much prefer rich, I think we would all say that. I just may say it more directly. But I mean, I was at the bottom. I mean, my long story short, we were supposed to live off of my wife's salary while I was starting up the business. And well, she had a cerebral aneurysm and went into the hospital for 11 days. And so we had, 2 high 6-figure salaries go down to 0 overnight. And so I'm like, you got to be able to decide, what are you going to do? And I think the thing that really got me through was, one, I am tenacious, and tenacity is one of, my traits. And I think that if you are going to make it in business, as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, you have to have tenacity, a stick-to-itiveness. Even when the crap is hitting the fan, you've got to be able to weather it, because tomorrow may be a very different and better day. You also need to pay attention to who you pay attention to. So, there are a lot of charlatans out there, a lot of jokers that are going to tell you, hey, there's how I can get you 10,000 likes for $49. And, so you have to be careful who you listen to for advice. Find 1 or 2 or maybe a little handful of trusted advisors. They don't even have to be living. You can go back to Napoleon Hill or Jim Rohn, on the mindset and stuff. You can study, the great marketers of the ages, and not get stuck with somebody who's just seat of the pants, flash in the pan, or worse, they're just going to take your money and you've got no results to show for it. So I think those are the 2 biggest that I would have for folks that are kind of feeling a little down, is get yourself some good coaching from a live person or a dead one. And then stick-to-itiveness, tenacity. You can't give up.
No, and the whole big headline from all this, that Disney, of course, is about experiences, and remembering ourselves that in business, actually focusing on these experiences and the experiences that the people we have professional relationships with us have, is also what in the down is going to ultimately bring you back, right? Because that is your value, that's your professional credit, so to speak. And sometimes we're in the down low through circumstances that are way beyond our making, right? And you still, somehow you need to keep climbing to get back up. And if you then have something to cash on because you actually invested in people, and relationships, that's forever better. Before we go, we could talk about this forever, because of course Disney is everybody's favorite topic, or at least everybody's intrigued enough to say, hey, how could we make that link back? If people want to hear more about all the stuff we didn't talk about, the stuff we did talk about, what you do, and or maybe want your help, where do they go? What do they do?
Sure. Actually, I've created a hot sheet that people can download. It's called 52 Ways to Wow Your Customer Without Breaking the Bank. So it's 52 low or no cost ways, 1 wow a week for the whole year. I got you all set for a year. Hey, some people, they thought, I don't know how to think of this stuff. How do I wow somebody? What do I do? Well, I'm going to give you 52 different ways that you can start to wow your customers. And you can get that at wow52ways.com. That would probably be the best place to start.
Thank you very much, Vance. We will make sure we put that in the show notes. So wherever you're listening, if you're driving, don't stop. You can check it out later, wherever you picked up this episode. All the links will be there. Vance Morris, I'm sure if you start with Vance Morris and Disney and customer client retention, it takes 3 seconds, or on my LinkedIn or his LinkedIn, all of these. Thank you so much for joining me today and sharing your magic.
My pleasure. I was happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
And thank you for tuning in. I hope to have you back at the next episode. Have a good one. Bye.
That's it for this episode of the Business Emergency Room. If you are currently dealing with chaos or disruption in your business, please reach out. You can email, text, or call, and I will find a way to connect with you within 24 hours. I've helped others steer out of the storm, and I know I can help you too. Talk soon. Please like, subscribe, and share.